He slept alone until a wolf alien claimed him as her mate. Jake pushed open the cabin door and stepped inside as the wind howled through. The trees outside the small window, the sky above the alien forest was deep purple and heavy with clouds, and he knew a storm was coming. He locked the door behind him and dropped his pack to the floor, rubbing the cold from his hands. The fire was low, so he added more wood, watching the sparks rise like tiny stars. This planet was quiet, too quiet sometimes. But that was why he chose it, far from people, far from the past. He could not forget here. No one asked questions, and no one expected anything from him. He hunted, cooked, wrote in his journal, and slept alone every night. He told himself he liked it that way, but that night something changed. It was past midnight when Jake heard the noise. At first he thought it was the wind again, but then came a second sound, softer, like something dragging across the ground. He stood still, heart thumping, and reached for the long metal rod he kept near the bed. Not a weapon, but solid enough to protect himself. Moved to the door slowly and listened again. Another sound came, a low, pained breath, like something trying to hold back a cry. He hesitated, then pulled the door open just a crack. There she was, a tall shape slumped near the steps, half covered in the shadows. Her body was strange, almost human, but not quite. Fur covered her arms, legs, and back. Her face had a long snout, and her ears stood high like a wolf, but her eyes, they were wide and glowing, pale silver and full of pain, and something else, something that looked like fear. Jake froze. She didn't move for a moment, then slowly reached out her clawed hand and whispered one word in broken English: mate. The wind roared around them, and Jake looked at her again, bleeding, hurt, barely able to stand. He knew he should shut the door, call someone, or do nothing, but his hand moved on its own, pulling her inside, dragging her out of the cold. Her body was heavy, but he managed to lay her near the fire. Her breathing was slow but steady. He looked over her body, torn fabric, strange armor, deep scratches across her chest and shoulder. Something had attacked her, something big, and she had run a long way to reach him. Jake washed the wounds and wrapped them in clean cloth from his kit. Her skin was rough but warm, and he noticed her breath slowed as he worked. Her glowing eyes closed as if she trusted him without reason. He sat back after a while, staring at the fire, his heart still racing. What did she mean by mate? Why did she come here? Why him? A soft sound made him turn. Her eyes were open again, and this time she reached for his arm. Her hand pressed against his skin, and she whispered again, "You save me now, I belong." Jake opened his mouth to speak, but then he saw a faint glow where her hand touched him, a symbol forming on his skin, like light drawn in the air. It did not hurt, but it pulsed with warmth, as if her heartbeat was touching his own. Pulled back, but the mark remained shining for a moment, before fading into nothing. "What is this?" he asked. Her voice was soft like wind through trees. "Life mark, bond with soul, only once, only true one. I choose." Jake stared at her, not knowing what to say. The words were strange, but the meaning clear. She had bonded herself to him and her world. This was not a mistake, it was forever. He stood and stepped back, unsure what to do. She did not rise, she just looked at him, eyes glowing in the firelight, and for the first time since arriving on this planet, Jake felt something he had not felt in years. Seen, turned away, trying to clear his thoughts outside. The wind howled louder, shaking the walls. He checked the door again, locked it, and looked back at her. She was already asleep, curled near the fire like a wounded animal, but peaceful. Her breathing, even her face, calm. Jake lay in his bed that night, eyes wide open, listening to the storm and the sound of her breath across the room. He wanted to believe this was a dream, that by morning she would be gone and he could go back to being alone. But deep down he knew something had changed, and it had only just begun. He slept alone until a wolf alien claimed him as her mate. Morning light pushed through the cabin window and touched Jake's face, but he was already awake, lying still on his bed with tired eyes. He turned his head slowly toward the fire, and there she was again, the wolf alien Ray, sleeping with her arms wrapped around her chest, her body rising and falling with each breath. Her fur looked cleaner, her wounds closed with care, and still she remained by the fire like she belonged. Jake sat up quietly, unsure of what the day would bring. He had seen strange things in his life, but nothing like this. A being who marked him called him mate, and now slept in his cabin, like they had always known each other. Hirinku marked him, but a being who marked him called him mate, and now slept in his cabin, like they had always known each other. But nothing like this. A being who marked him like this. Stood and poured water into a pot, placing it over the fire, and the sound made her ears twitch. She opened her eyes slowly and looked at him without fear, without questions. Her silver eyes found his, and for a long second, neither of them moved. Then she spoke softly. "You did not leave. I thought you would." Jake replied, "I do not run away, not anymore." She sat up carefully, her hands resting on the ground, her tail curled around her side. She watched him move around the cabin, as if studying each step, each breath, each action. He brought her water in a wooden cup and placed it near her hand. She looked down and touched the cup with careful fingers, then brought it to her lips and drank slowly. Her throat moved gently as she swallowed, and Jake noticed how human that simple action looked. "Thank you," she whispered again. "I am Ray of the Moonblood clan." Jake nodded. "I am Jake of No Clan." Ray tilted her head, her ears flicking. "What does No Clan mean?" Jake looked out the window for a long moment, then said, "It means I lost what I had long ago, and I do not want to remember it." She did not ask more. Instead, she reached toward his arm and gently touched the spot where the glowing mark had appeared. Her touch was light, but her eyes grew serious. "It is true, then the bond is formed. It cannot be undone." Jake pulled his arm back, not angry, just confused. "I did not agree to anything. I do not even know what this is." Ray looked down and said softly, "I was dying when I reached you. I had no strength left, but your warmth, your hands, your voice woke me in that moment. My soul saw yours, and the mark chose for us." Jake rubbed his face with both hands, trying to make sense of her words. Everything about her was strange, yet there was no fear in her, no danger, only honesty. Outside, the wind had calmed, and the birds with long tails sang from the trees. The air smelled of moss and smoke, and the weight of silence filled the cabin again. Jake spoke again. "So what happens now?" Her stood slowly, her body tall and strong, though still weak from her wounds. She looked toward the door and said, "The ones who hunt me will come soon. I ran from them. They will not stop until they find me, and if they see the mark, they will challenge it." Jake felt something twist in his chest. "Who are they?" "My kind," she said. "My pack. I left them because they wanted me to bond with another, not by choice, but by command. I refused and ran. They call me traitor. Now they do not care for truth, only rules." Jake stepped toward her and asked, "And what will they do to me? If they find you marked by me, they will test you," she said, and her voice grew heavy. "If you are weak, they will kill you. If you run, they will shame me, and I will be cast out forever. If you fight and live, they will accept you." Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it, so no pressure. Ray blinked, unsure of the joke, but nodded. "You are not forced. I will leave if you wish and face them alone." Jake stared at her for a long moment, his heart pounding in his chest. Everything inside him screamed to let her go, to forget this and return to his quiet life. But when he looked into her eyes, something deeper pulled him forward, something he could not name. "No," he said quietly, "I will not let you go alone." Her breath caught, and for the first time she looked unsure, her voice small. "You would stand for May." "Do not know why," Jake said, "but yes, I will." She stepped closer slowly until she stood just before him, her hand lifted gently, touching his chest above the heart, her voice soft. "Then we must prepare." That night, Ray showed Jake how to move without sound, how to hide scent, how to see the wind in the grass. They trained with old wooden sticks and climbed trees to find signs of passing creatures. She moved with grace and raw power, her body low and ready, her hands like shadows in motion. Was slower, but he learned her way, her rhythm, her quiet strength. When he failed, she helped him. When he fell, she lifted him. When he doubted, she stood by him without judgment. In those moments, something changed between them. Not just the bond, not just survival, but something warm, something human. That night, as they sat near the fire again, Jake asked, "What does mate mean in your world?" Ray looked at him with eyes that seemed to shine with memory. "It means I trust you to walk beside me, not in front, not behind, but as one soul, and if the stars fall and the sky breaks, I will not leave your side." Jake did not answer right away. He just stared at the fire, feeling the weight of those words. Outside, far in the distance, a sound echoed low and deep like a horn calling across the valley. Ray stood slowly, her face hardening. "They are close now." Jake rose beside her, ready or not. The night of silence had ended, and everything would change by dawn. He slept alone until a wolf alien claimed him as her mate. The sound came again, louder this time, echoing through the hills and shaking the trees. Jake stepped outside his cabin. Ray followed close behind, her eyes sharp and focused. The night sky above them was painted with stars, but the ground felt heavy, like something ancient was waking in the far distance. Lights moved between the trees, not bright, but steady, like silent hunters crossing a border. Ray crouched low and sniffed the air, her body tense, her claws pressing into the soft dirt. "They are near," she whispered. 4, maybe 5, no more than that. "But they are strong. One of them is my old challenger. He will not forgive me." Jake felt something rise inside him, not fear exactly, but something colder, something that made his fists clench. Without thinking, he reached for the long wooden pole they had trained with. He knew it was nothing against what was coming, but it felt right in his hands. Ray stood slowly and looked at him. "If you face them, they will test you. If you fail, they will tear you apart. If you win, they must honor the bond." Jake met her gaze and said quietly, "Then I fight." She nodded once, no smile, just quiet trust. "Then follow me," she said, and moved into the trees, her steps soft, her tail low, her breath slow. Jake followed her through the forest. The night was alive with whispers of wind and leaves, the ground cold beneath his feet, but his blood was warm. Ray led him to a clearing, a circle of flat stones surrounded by tall, dark trees. In the center, a mark was burned into the earth, a spiral made of sharp lines and ancient symbols. "This is the trial ground," Ray said. "If you step inside, you agree to be judged. Only the strong walk out." Jake looked down at the mark, then at her. Her eyes held no lies. He stepped forward and stood in the center. The wind fell silent, as if the forest held its breath. Then they came from the shadows. 5 figures emerged, tall and covered in fur, their bodies wrapped in armor made of bone and metal. Their eyes glowed like fire. The one in front was the largest, his fur black as night, his arms crossed over his chest. He looked at Ray, then at Jake with pure rage. "You choose a human." The warrior growled. "You shame us all." Ray stepped forward, her voice calm. "I choose with my soul, not with fear." The black wolf bared his teeth, then let him prove it. 2 of the others stepped forward and formed a circle around Jake. They moved slow with deadly grace, their claws ready, their breath steaming in the cold air. Jake took a breath and raised his pole. It shook in his hands, but he held it tight. Ray stood just beyond the edge, her eyes locked on his. No words, just trust. The first warrior rushed forward fast and low. Jake stepped aside just in time, swinging the pole toward the shoulder. It hit but bounced off the thick fur. Pain shot through Jake's arm, but he stayed on his feet. The second warrior came from the side, claws flashing. Jake ducked and rolled away. Ray had taught him, barely avoiding the strike. They circled again, faster now, testing him. One came low, one came high. Jake blocked one blow and took the other across his ribs. He cried out but stayed standing. Blood ran down his side, and he tightened his grip. Ray stepped closer, but did not enter the circle, her claws digging into her own palms. Jake moved again, this time with purpose. He let one warrior charge and dropped low, sweeping the pole at the legs. It worked. The warriors stumbled and fell. The crowd of wolves growled, but none moved. Jake turned to the second fighter, breathing hard. He saw the opening and lunged. The pole hit the chest, and the warrior fell back. Both fighters were down, not dead, but beaten. The black wolf stepped forward, eyes blazing. "Enough," he said. "Your human survives, but he has not proven the bond. He must face me." Jake looked at Ray, her face pale but proud. He turned back and nodded. The black wolf entered the circle, towering over Jake, his muscles thick and his eyes cold. "I am Thal, the first of blood, the leader of the hunt. You are nothing, but I will test your heart." He charged without warning, his claws flashing. Jake blocked the first strike, Barely the second hit his shoulder, and he stumbled. Pain roared through him. But he stood again. They circled the wolf fast and brutal. Jake, small and tired, but steady. Blow after blow. Jake fell, rose, blocked, hit back again, and again. The stars turned above, and the blood flowed below. Then Jake saw it, a shift in the eyes, a breath. Too slow, he stepped forward and struck with all he had. The pole hit Thal's knee, and he dropped to one leg. Jake followed with a second strike to the side, then backed away. Thal stood slowly, breathing hard, blood on his chest. Then he laughed, a deep sound like thunder. You have heart, human, you bleed, but do not break. You carry pain like fire. You are worthy. He stepped back and raised his claw to the sky. The others followed, letting out a long howl. Ray rushed into the circle and caught Jake before he fell, her arms strong, her voice shaking. You did it. You stood. You are mine, and I am yours. Jake leaned into her warmth, eyes closing, the stars above spinning. For the first time in his life, he had been tested and chosen, not for war, not for power, but for love, and he had not fallen. He slept alone until a wolf alien claimed him as her mate. Wind was still, the sky clear, but Jake's heart raced with the weight of what had happened. He stood in the clearing, the echoes of the wolf pack's howl fading into the night. Thal and the others had left, their footsteps fading into the distance. Ray's hands were on his shoulders, but he couldn't feel her warmth at first, too lost in the pain of the fight. She was quiet as she helped him walk, her hands steady as she guided him toward the cabin. Her eyes never left him, full of concern, full of something deeper than he could name. It was strange to feel this, to have someone care for him like this. All his life, he'd been alone, moving from place to place, never getting close to anyone, afraid to. But now with Ray, it felt different. He let her help him into the cabin, onto the bed, but he didn't want to rest. He didn't want to be weak. He wanted to stand, to prove to himself he was strong, that he could handle what was coming, but Ray wouldn't let him. She knelt by the fire, preparing herbs and water, her movements quick and sure, like she had done this 100 times. Jake watched her, feeling something inside stir, something not like fear, but something like trust. Something he hadn't felt in years. She turned to him after a moment, her voice soft but firm. You are hurt. You must rest. Jake opened his mouth to argue but then stopped. She was right. He was tired. His body ached from the fight, from the tension that had held him together. But his mind was still racing, still questioning what had happened. Ray saw the look on his face, the confusion, the doubt, and she sighed. She sat next to him on the bed, her body close but not touching. She didn't need to say anything. Her presence was enough. Do you trust me, Jake? She asked softly, her voice quiet but clear. He blinked, looking into her eyes. He had never been good with trust. Not with anyone, not after everything he had lost. But with her. With Ray, it felt like something was different. Yes, he whispered. I trust you. Her eyes softened, and she reached out, brushing a strand of hair from his face. There was a tenderness in her touch that made Jake's chest tighten. It wasn't like anything he had known before. No one had ever looked at him like this. No one had ever cared for him the way Ray did. You are mine now, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I choose you, Jake, and I will protect you. He wanted to say something, to ask her why she chose him, but the words didn't come. Instead, he just nodded, too tired to say anything more. His eyes fluttered, and before he knew it, he had drifted into a deep sleep. When he awoke, the cabin was quiet, and the sun had risen high in the sky. Ray was sitting near the fire, sharpening a blade. Her focus was intense, her sharp eyes flicking over the weapon as she worked. Jake sat up slowly, testing his body. His ribs ached, but the pain wasn't as bad as it had been. He flexed his fingers and found that his strength had returned, if only a little. Ray looked up when she noticed he was awake. Her expression softened, and she put the blade down. You rest well? She asked, standing up and crossing to him. Yeah, he replied, rubbing his eyes. I'm okay. She studied him for a moment before speaking again. "We are safe for now, but we must move soon. The pack may not be the only danger we face. There are others who will come for you, for us, once they hear about the bond. They will want to test it. They will want to challenge me." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He had known the danger wasn't over, but hearing it from Ray made it real. He hadn't thought about the others, the ones who might come looking for them. He had been so focused on surviving the pack's test that he hadn't considered what might come next. "What do we do?" he asked, his voice low, unsure. Ray paused, looking out the cabin window for a long moment. She was silent, as if thinking, as if weighing the options. "We will leave," she said finally. "We will go to the mountains. There, we can hide. They will not follow us there. But we must move fast." Jake nodded, though something inside him didn't sit right. He had never been one to run. But with Ray, he realized there was a part of him that wanted to protect her, to stand beside her, no matter what came. He had chosen to stay, to fight. And now he had to live with that choice. "Okay," he said. "I'll follow you." She nodded, a brief smile flickering across her face. "Good, we leave before nightfall." They spent the rest of the day preparing. Ray gathered supplies, sharpening weapons, and checking the cabin's traps. Jake helped where he could, though most of the work was done by her. She moved with purpose, with the grace of someone who had lived through many battles. But as the day wore on, he saw something in her eyes that he hadn't noticed before. It wasn't just strength. It was fear. Fear of what was coming, of the unknown. Jake knew that fear too well. He had spent his whole life running from it. But this time with Ray, he wasn't running. He was standing his ground. As the sun began to set, they packed their things and prepared to leave. Jake felt a knot in his stomach, the weight of what was about to happen. But Ray's presence beside him, strong and unwavering, gave him courage. "We will make it through," she said, her voice low but certain. Together, Jake nodded, though his mind was still racing. They would make it through, but how much more would they have to face? How much more would they have to fight before they found peace? Only time would tell. He slept alone, till a wolf alien claimed him as her mate. The mountains loomed ahead, dark and sharp against the twilight sky. Jake walked beside Ray, his heart still racing from everything that had happened. The fight with the pack, the bond, the trust, and now this, the unknown. They were leaving the forest behind, stepping into the cold air of the highlands, where no one would find them, or so they hoped. Ray moved beside him, her pace steady and strong. She was a warrior, built for survival. Her fur, though still a little matted from the battle, shone with strength. Her silver eyes glanced at Jake every now and then, making sure he was still with her, still standing strong. But Jake noticed the small signs of worry on her face, the way her tail would twitch when she thought he wasn't looking. She was worried. But she wasn't saying it. "How much further?" Jake asked, his voice rough from the cold mountain air. Ray didn't answer. "Right away." She paused, her sharp ears flicking at the sound of distant winds. Then, finally she spoke. "Not far now. We'll make it before the sun sets." Jake nodded, but the silence between them felt heavy. He could tell that Ray was thinking about something she wasn't saying. He had learned to read her by now, and there was a sadness in her movements that made his heart ache. "Ray, what's wrong?" he asked, his voice quieter than usual. She stopped walking and turned to face him. Her eyes met his, and for the first time, he saw a flicker of vulnerability in them. She looked tired, but not just from the journey. She looked like she was carrying something heavy, something she wasn't sure how to share. "Jake," she began slowly, "I have spent my life running from my pack, from my people. They are not kind to those who break the rules. They want me to return, to kneel, to obey, but I will not. I chose you because you are different. You do not see me as a tool or a weapon. You see me as I am. Jake felt something stir inside him. It was a feeling he couldn't explain, a warmth that spread from his chest to his limbs. He had never been one to protect anyone, never had a reason to. But with Ray, something had changed. The way she looked at him, the way she trusted him, it made him want to protect her, to stand with her against anything that came. We'll face it together, Jake said firmly. Whatever happens, we do this as a team. Ray didn't say anything for a long time. Then, after a few heartbeats, she nodded. Yes, together. They continued to walk in silence, the cold air biting at their skin, but the bond between them felt warm. As the mountain pass narrowed, they came to a cliffside where the wind howled through the rocky walls. Ray stopped again, her nose twitching as she sniffed the air. They are near, she whispered. The pack is close. Jake's heart skipped a beat. He had known this moment would come, but hearing Ray say it made it real. They couldn't run forever. And now it seemed the time had come to face whatever was waiting for them. I won't leave you, Jake said, his words clear and strong. You're mine, Ray. I've chosen this. Ray's eyes softened, and for a moment, the weight of everything they had faced, the bond, the trials, the fights, seemed to lift. She reached out and took his hand, her grip firm but tender. Then, we fight together, she said, her voice steady, full of determination. As they reached the top of the cliff, Jake could see them, the pack. They stood in a line, tall and imposing, shadows stretching across the rocky ground. Thal stood at the front, his eyes like burning embers as he looked at Ray, then at Jake. Behind him were the others, waiting, watching, their forms barely visible. In the twilight, Ray stepped forward, her body poised and ready for what came next. Jake stood beside her, his heart thudding in his chest. He had faced battles before, but this was different. This was about Ray, about their bond, about everything they had fought for. Thal spoke, his voice low and growling. You think you can just walk away, Ray? You think you can just leave us, dishonor us, and walk free? You do not belong with this human. He is weak. He cannot protect you. Ray stepped forward again, her voice rising, calm but fierce. I do not answer to you, Thal. I answer only to myself. I choose this human. I choose Jake, and no matter what you think, I will not kneel to you. Thal's eyes flared with rage, and the other wolves around him growled in response. But there was something different in the air now, something that hadn't been there before. The weight of their decision hung between them all. Ray had chosen, and Jake had chosen her. And neither of them would back down. Jake felt his pulse quicken. He had never been one to fight for anything, but now, with Ray by his side, he had something worth fighting for. Thal's growl rumbled in the air, but before he could speak again, Ray stepped forward, her body strong and unyielding. I do not fear you, she said. I fear nothing. There was a long pause, and for a moment, Jake thought the fight was inevitable. But then, Thal's eyes flickered with something else, something Jake couldn't read. And then slowly, Thal lowered his head, his voice softer. Though still filled with authority. You are free, Ray. But remember this. You have chosen a human. He will never be one of us. And for that, you will always be an outcast. Ray nodded, her eyes never leaving Thal's. I do not need your approval. With that, the pack turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving the two of them alone on the mountain. The wind had calmed, the air settling into a strange silence. Jake turned to Ray, his heart still pounding but filled with something else now. Relief, pride, a sense of peace. It's over, he said, his voice quiet but strong. Ray looked at him, her eyes shining with something deep. Yes, she said, it's over. But it's just the beginning. And for the first time, Jake believed her. They stood together, side by side, as the last light of the day faded behind the mountains, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it together, The bond was theirs, and nothing could break it. The end.